Oh, yeah. It is Saturday, October 4th. That's right, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every weekend. Thomas J. Bellezza here with the right mindset. Today we are going to jump right in to the magic of how to control pacing and keep readers turning the page. I'm not really going to explain too deeply what pacing is. It's not a lesson like that. I'm actually going to show you something else. I'm going to go a little deeper into what pacing is by showing you real-time examples. I'm going to explore a scene. I'm going to create a scene in real time, and we're going to play with slow pace, fast pace. We're going to combine them. We're going to keep building on a scene just so you can understand what it looks like to physically see pace. Because I know that's a difficult thing sometimes. You know, when it's an abstract idea. Pace. What is pace? You know, like we describe pace as pacing is the speed at which information is presented to the reader. But that's a very abstract idea. So we're going to go a little deeper into that. Ciao bello, what's up Emma? And flowers, hello. So, like I said, today is going to be focused on me doing a real-time example of pace. However, I do have videos on pacing if you want a little bit more of a lesson. But today I'm going to show you what it looks like to not only create pace, but also see what pace is. Because we could describe it all we want, all day, every day. Before we get started, though, as you know, in the comment section, we have a poll. Who doesn't love polls? The poll is, what's the best way to balance pace, scene goals, sentence rhythm, logical narrative movement? We will talk about that at the end of the hour, and then I'll be available to answer any of your questions in general. However, remember, feel free to ask any questions during the lesson itself. Well, the example. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so I have nothing on the screen, you know, because I'm going to do this from scratch. We're going to do it from scratch, okay? And, oh, hi, flowers. And remember, I have a tick, so pretty much anytime there's a comment, I'm forced to put it on and sing it. Hello. See, I can't help it. I've tried. But let's get into it. So the first thing we have to do is we have to establish what kind of scene we want to get. Okay, and we're going to build on there. Ultimately, remember, when you're constructing a scene, it needs a few elements. It needs to have basically a setup to what's going on. We need context so we could challenge it within the middle, and then obviously we need to resolve that challenge. So that's all information that the reader needs to know, which then influences the pace. So how much you set up, how long you linger in the setup, that creates a slower pace. How quickly you get through it is a faster pace. So those are things we're going to be looking at. However, if you've watched the video where I broke down an R.R. Martin chapter, I think I did the first chapter, Bran, in Game of Thrones, I showed you that it only took 300, maybe a little more than that, 300 words to set up the scene, and then they stayed in the challenge a little longer, and then it resolved fairly quickly. But not all scenes have to do that. It's based on what your desire of the movement of that scene is going to be. So with that, I think we're going to do something a little bit more thriller or crime today. So we got to start with information. We need an investigator. And remember, all great writers have great editors, so don't worry about spelling and grammar, especially when we're figuring out ideas. All right, so there we go. We are going to have an investigator. I'm setting up, by the way, this is an example of mapping out or outlining a scene before you even get into it. So this is a little behind the scenes of the scene. All right, so we need to set it up. We got an investigator. They are searching. We need an environment. So let's say searching an attic. Attic? I don't know how to spell attic. Oh, I think it's 2 T's, right? 2 T's? Let's see. I'm going to be doing an attic. Why an attic, Thomas? Well, that's a great question. Well, because I want to create atmosphere. I want it to feel almost claustrophobic. That's just how my brain is thinking right now. You know, it's supposed to be a thriller, so you don't want it to be like, you know, happy. Ooh, we got an Afghani. What's up, Afghani? I have a phobia of slowing down the pacing, fearing that the reader will lose interest and not finish the book. You know, that's a great phobia to have. However, As I have explained many a times on this channel, you can still have a fast read while the pace is slow. Remember, pace is the speed at which information is presented. It does not necessarily affect the speed at which you read. Now, if something is dense, that would affect the reading speed. But dense doesn't necessarily mean slow pace, because you could have a lot happening really quick and getting right to the point with fast pace, and it could be just dense. All right. And the way we get around that, and we've talked about this in the past as well, is logical narrative movement, etc., etc. But it is good to be aware that slow pace can create a loss of interest unless you allow it to be intriguing, as if it's doing something and isn't just fluff. I think I'm the opposite. Oh, if it's too fast, if you don't linger enough, yeah. But that's also a really good fear to have, because you as a writer need to do what writers do, ask questions. You need to really, but at the end of the day, it comes down to you. You have to make the choice. You have to agree to what works for you. I reckon my character's navel gaze is a little too long. Oh, how the clouds thus be white and far upon the gray sky of night's fall. Yeah, that can get annoying. All right, but it doesn't mean it's wrong, okay? But let's get back into it. So we have an investigator. They are searching in an attic. I do want to create a conflict, a confrontation. So maybe another character enters the attic. Let's say it's a child of the victim, and there are other siblings involved. Okay, we're getting into. So for anyone who's joining in, what we are doing today is I'm going to map out some ideas. Then I'm going to start writing out a scene, and I'm going to write the scene with fast pace, and then I'm going to show you slow pace, and then I'm going to combine them to show you how to control pace. But the whole point of this video is to allow you to see what pace is, because we always explain it as pace being the speed at which information is presented to the reader, but that is abstract. So we're going to focus on the showing of it. No flowers involved. All right. Okay. What do we got on the we got 3 votes on the thing. All right. So an investigator, they are searching an attic. What are they searching for? They're searching an attic for, I don't know, paperwork. Something to do with the, since we have the children, the family element of the family element. All right. I like that. Okay. All right. Okay, so if we're gonna have, sorry, I'm thinking. If we're gonna have a child and we're gonna have a conflict, the conflict has to be something like maybe the child confesses as a misdirect, trying to lead the investigator toward another person, maybe another sibling. Oh, Jesus. All right, sibling. Come on, Thomas. All right. Okay. Now, right off the bat, if you are outlining a scene like this, if you're just sort of jotting down some ideas, this is all information, and information influences pace. You're either going to give enough information to maintain narrative movement, and that in itself could be slow or fast. However, do I need to explain that they are an investigator? The answer is yes, but do I need to tell the reader that they are an investigator? Do I need to start the scene off where it's like, Jake, a long time private investigator, entered the attic, right? Do I need to write that? Now, for the record, this would be considered slow pace. And the reason is because we are diving. We are exploring information and we are creating asides. A long-time private investigator is an aside. This version would be a faster pace. Jack entered the attic. Okay? Now, a couple things to understand here with this example. First off, I could slow down the pace by thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered. Right? I should do this just so you have the examples. 1 second. Let's do this. Boop, boop. Just so you can see the evolution. Sorry about that. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered, removing his hat and placing it on a small table to his left. All right, so this is considered slow pace, and the reason is because we are creating atmosphere. Hey, what's up, JK? Hope your day is going great. Well, now that you're here, obviously, you know, we love when we see you here on the show. All right, so this is slow pace, but it doesn't mean it's not a fast read. And what makes it a fast read is obviously we are expanding, evolving, or qualifying information. So we are moving on things, right? Thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered, removing his hat and placing it on a small table to his left. Now, the reason this becomes a fast read and still allows for slow pace is because nothing is being introduced that isn't a part of the forward momentum. Okay? That's a very important element of pacing. If slow pace stops momentum by being an aside, that then creates a slow read for a couple reasons. One, this is a very awkward sentence in itself. Jack, a longtime private investigator, entered the attic, right? This is a fast read. It's fast paced. Jack entered the attic. No worry. But this is also fast paced, but builds and adds to the scene. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered, removing his hat and placing it on a small table to his left. The reason it's fast reading, or a fast read, is because the reader doesn't have to think about what is being presented. The information is all connected to one another. It's not an aside. It's not adding some detail that is sort of what we as the reader might want them to know. For example, and I'll show you this exact beat, but with a slow read. And I'll do a fast version, a fast pace, and I'll do a slow pace for you in a second. Hey, Joanne. Hi, Afghani. Hey. All right. So, with that said, let's do a fast pace, okay? But we're going to try to create a slow read. Thunder cracked outside the window. Jack entered the attic. Room dark as he placed his hat down a small table to his left. Okay, we could do place this hat down on a small table. All right, so I might be okay then. So long you're writing stuff the reader might already be expecting then. That is a really good perception. That's really great perception there, Flowers. Yeah, so if the reader is basically in the scene and understands what is happening, which is context, understands the words being presented, understands, the context and the subtext, it's going to be easier for them to read it fast because they're not stopping. Yeah, nothing off the wall. I'm going to show you off the wall in a second. All right. Except everybody left, it looks like. All right, so here we go. All right. So why is this is still considered fast paced, but it's a slow read, and the reason is thunder cracked outside the window. That's right to the point. Jack entered the attic. That's right to the room. Right to the point. The room. Actually, it should be the dark room. The room. Actually, I'm gonna write a really poor sentence. The room was dark. All right. Was in this situation is poor writing, so I'm doing it as just an example. The room was dark, and he placed his hat down on a table. All right. So this would technically be considered fast pace because we are getting just enough information for context, but we are not going deeper into the emotional truth of how Jack is experiencing the scene. We're not going into choices beyond he placed his hat down on a table. And we are not qualifying or expanding on ideas. So, for example, a small table to his left is expanding on an idea. It is not just a table, it's a small table too. So, adding detail does slow down the pace. But again, slow pace doesn't equal or equate to slow read. All right? Hi, lurking in the chat because I'm very sleepy. That's all right, JK. As long as you're having fun, just sit there and relax. Let the talkie of the Tommy move you. All right, move you to enjoy the information being presented. All right. So now let's do a slow pace that is also a slow read. Okay. And by the way, this is a slow read, and the reason, let me go over that real quick. The reason is because it's jacked up sentences. It's very staccato. Thunder cracked outside the window. Jack entered the attic. The room was dark, and he placed his hat down on a table. It's fast-paced, but it's a slow read because they are not doing anything. The sentences have no flow to them. There's no personality. There's no author voice. There's nothing really happening. The reader is like, there's no way a reader's like, this is woo! All right. But if we took this, okay, and we slowed down slowed down the reading, not the pace. This is a slow pace piece right here, this. But we're going to rewrite it so it is a slow read. All right. The thunder cracked beyond the window. All right. Flashes of light filled the dark room. It's wooden plank. It's wooden walls, plank, and years of mold. Jack entered. Okay. All right. So this is what we would call a very slow pace, and we would also call it a slow read. And before I go into it, does somebody want to tell me why it is considered a slow read, and that slow read then makes the slow pace influence the reading experience, where it's like, maybe I need to work on this? Feel free to let me know while I take a sippity dip doop da, and then we'll go into it. Do 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 do. Alright, maneuver. Thunder cracked beyond the attic wall. I think it Should be and flashes of light. Because it's a comma, right? And flashes of light? Yeah. Flashes of light. Okay. It's wooden walls. It's a slow read due to the description, right? All right. That is a close check. Very good. Description by itself doesn't create a slow read, but description does create slow pace. We're looking for slow pace and slow read. That's the thing you don't want. You don't want slow pace or fast pace creating a slow read. All right? But it's very good. Description for description's sake would create a slow read. A lot of description, so I just read. It's whoa, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting repetitive. Very good, Flowers. That's another element that is important to connect. Now remember, it's not always just one thing. You have to look for culprits kind of working together. Repetition is spending, frivolously, your word count. Very good so far. Let's see what else we have. Description might slow the chapter down. Again, subscribe to my channel. Description does create slow pace or slower pace, but that does not always equal slow reading. We're trying to find the medium that does both. Info dumping. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. We are falling into information dumping. Okay, and the reason is, let's go into, these are all great answers, by the way. You're all using the writer's brain. I love it. So thunder cracked beyond the attic wall. This right here, oh, we got more. Hello, Thomas in chat room. What's up, Angel Faye? So thunder cracked beyond the attic room, the window. This does all the atmospheric work we need. So this is just adding extra work. It's not creating... it is by chance logical narrative movement in the sense that and flashes of light filled the dark room. It technically is logical narrative movement, but it is also an aside because now we're just going deeper into its wooden walls planked in years of mold. Now, hey Angel, good to see you. This is the issue with what's going on here. None of these additional or expansions or qualifications within the logical narrative movement is adding forward momentum. We are not learning anything more about this beat other than description, okay? And it's the description itself is not moving the narrative forward, okay? You always want to have forward momentum. Hey JK, good to see you too. Of course, the lighting would have, it would have happened already. Yeah, you know, like we want to keep it going. Hi, Angel. Okay, so thunder cracked beyond. That's why here thunder cracked outside. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered. It's because we're allowing the atmosphere to connect to Jack, keeping the momentum going. Here, the expansion is just playing with writing. Now, it takes us one long sentence. Oh, we got more. Hey, all. Is it subjective? Does it depend on whether you need description for what not comes next? IG, if going to bump head or fall through wall. All right, that's a really great point. And it connects directly to what I was saying. Narrative forward. If there's a chance they do or could or will bump their head, that is important. You would need that information because that's context that pays off. So yes, describing things that allow for the context of payoff, 100% Jack. Absolutely. But if it doesn't pay off, if it doesn't move the narrative forward, if it's not doing plot, character development, or world building, you are just creating a slower read, and whether it's slow pace or fast pace, it is not getting a chance to do its job, and it's not economic. But that's really good. Great, great. Greetings, Thomas and everyone. What's up, bro? Hey, hey, hey. All right, we got Have to keep the greetings going all stream. That's right. Absolutely. Hi, Emma. All right. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. All right. So moving on. So because this is all basically not really needed. This is needed because this sets the tone. We know there's rain and thunder outside. We know he's in an attic. Great. Jack entered, having to duck his head. Now, this is why this is not narrative forward. Okay? This does create character. Again, that is important. We know he's tall, right? But then the building constructed in 1923 left little room to maneuver until he emerged into the open space. This creates style and shape to the room, but the problem is they are coming off as statements or asides. For narrative movement, for things to have a fast read, you need to connect them. You need to allow them to move through what? The emotional experiences and choices of the character. In this situation, this works. The reason this works is because it is indeed through the emotional experiences and choices of the character. Jack is making the choice to duck. However, not only is this an aside, but Jack probably wouldn't know this, and if he did, it wouldn't be what he was thinking. Remember, POV, first person or third person limited, or third person limited rotating, the presentation, the POV, the descriptions, everything is through the character's experience and choices. If it is third person omniscient, this line would get a pass, but it is still not doing the work needed to maintain forward momentum. Just like Jack explained earlier with this would be effective if Jack was going to leave the room later and hit his head. Or the building constructed in 1923 then comes up within the scene as a payoff. However, again, what that brings me to is, if that's the case, why can't the construction of the building come up later and not right this second? That's what creates slow reads, when information is presented at the wrong time. It's not helping or growing the situation. It's just adding detail. It's just saying, hey, I want you to know this. But the scene doesn't need to know this yet. In fact, because it's an investigation, Jack could be looking, he could find, because remember he has to find paperwork. He could find paperwork in his investigation while he's going through stuff. And the paperwork could say, last will and testament, the 1923 estate, or the Connor estate built in 1923 and held by the family for, 4 generations. So then that also gives time. Is in due parts ownership to the eldest brother. Now we know the building was built in 1923. That connects back to having to duck. You could even write having to duck his head. I don't know. I wouldn't even know, because ducking his head is inferring that it's a smaller door and it's connected to an attic. Oh, we got. When does Jack make the choice to goose? Since we know Jack goose. It's not that kind of story, bro. It could be, though. It could be. Oh, my bad. That's funny. All right. Now, again, he removed his hat, placing it on a small table to his left. This also works. So if we look, and the reason is because this maintains movement. We know he removed his hat. We know he placed it to a small table to his left. We're giving spatial elements. We're building on the room through actual interaction instead of just description. Because imagine he walked into the attic and it's like, the attic was filled with boxes and crates and, and to his left there was a small table, and the table had a nice little lamp on it, though it was unplugged. And the door he entered was small. Like, none of that is narrative forward. And you might say to yourself, but Thomas, I want to describe the room. I want people to know. Then allow it to move through the character's interaction with the room. Allow their emotional experiences and choices to build and design the room. Because even in an opening beat like this, thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered, removing his hat and placing it on a small table. This leads us to a second beat, because that's the first movement. Now that his hat is off and it's to the table, right? The clutter push, the clutter filled the room. He stepped by it, balancing himself on the ceiling. Ooh, balancing himself. Well, we could do this. Holding his arms, balancing himself on the ceiling. He struggled through. He struggled around. He struggled over the dust and crates, reaching a large chest. Okay, near the window. Okay, so we've done a couple things here, expanding on it. Of course, my spell check ain't working. What's going on here? All right, yeah, the clutter filled the room. Okay, the clutter filled the room. All right, and he stepped by it, holding his arms to the ceiling for balance. I think that's better. All right. Again, I'm just writing this off the cuff, so this is obviously a first draft. All right. But what we're doing is we're now expanding on the room. So instead of using the first paragraph or the first passage or pro to just do a blank description of the room, we're allowing the room to not only move the narrative forward, but we are allowing the character's emotional experiences and choices to dress the room. Okay? The clutter filled the room, or you could even say, here, we'll make it even more. He stepped. I think it's past the clutter. There we go. He stepped past. I think it's past. He stepped past the clutter, holding his arms to the ceiling for balance. Right? Let's call him Jack. Struggled over the dusty crates, reaching a larger chest near the window. So here's a couple of things. Window. We have connected the windows. So the window is the first thing Jack noticed. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window. All right? Because he's the one noticing that as Jack entered, removing his hat. All right? So now we have connected the narrative thread. He was heading towards the window anyway. Why? Because there was a large chest near it. Okay? So we are backtracking and connecting things. All right? It's so cool when the room moves the plot forward. Much easier than when I have to do it myself. Correct. Yeah. You got to find a room that's willing to do it. Most rooms just sit there. Most rooms are squares. They have no personality. They're just not hip. They're not with it. But other rooms are like glass window, glass houses. You can see right through them. There's nothing to hide. All right. But these two elements create fast reads, and the pace is technically slow. The reason is we are expanding or qualifying or exploring certain elements. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window. We're adding elements to things. That's look, a small table to his left. It could have just been table. But because we are adding or expanding or exploring the table by saying that it is both small and to his left, that is technically slower pace because it is more information. The speed at which information is presented to you. If it's Jack place his hat down on a table, that is a faster pace because it is less information. That's all pace is. How much detail are you giving the reader is pace. All right? Now, obviously, if you want to speed things up, you could get him to that window quicker. You could say, for example, this is how you can quote unquote control the pace, right? So you could say, thunder cracked outside the attic window, or the window outside the window as Jack entered. He placed his hat on a table. Okay, on a table. And stepped deeper into the attic. Okay, so this is faster pace, and the reason is it has less information to. And by the way, when I say information, if we are not exploring the detail of, the emotions of, the perspective of, or the processing of, then it's usually considered faster pace because we're not basically sitting in those things. So thunder cracked outside the window is objectively true. It is what is happening. This is sight. We're not really touching the other senses, right? As Jack entered. This is also objectively true. It is not subjectively being filtered through the emotional experiences and or choices of the character. He placed his hat on a table is, again, objectively true. It is fast-paced because we are not learning why he did it. We are not seeing a choice beyond, he didn't take his hat off, he just placed it, right? We didn't add that extra beat, that extra character movement, that extra flow. We didn't allow the reader to sort of picture what he did. He's choosing to take his hat off. Why? Well, maybe later we indicate that the hat is a part of his personality, that it's something important to him. So him touching that hat, even in that quick moment, could seed and lead to something bigger, okay? Now, he just places on a table. He's not noticing that it's small. He doesn't even care it's to his left. That is a big difference in character behavior. But we have removed that and allowed it to just be faster pace. Why? Because maybe the characters are just trying to get to the heavy chest. All right? And step deeper into the attic. Now, this is where we could slow it down, right? We could get rid of the clutter. He moved by the clutter. And then we could say reaching a large chest near the window, okay? Or reaching not a large chest. Yeah, we'll keep that. All right, now, this is where we can say, why don't we slow it down? And the reason is, we could actually add that to this because it's basically one long movement. You know, thunder cracked outside the window as Jack entered. He placed his hat on a table and stepped deeper into the attic. He moved by the clutter, reaching a large chest near the window. All right, now we're going to slow it down. Okay? Jack opened it. Dust poured into the air, dancing with the flicker of the storm. Okay. Filled to the top with tanned, stained paper, aged in time and loss. Okay, now we're adding. What does this do? We are actually in the process of Jack. We're in how he's taking in these things, how he's looking at the paper, how he's qualifying the paper for him, how he's looking at it. Wow, this is aged in time and lost, meaning it's been lost. It's these kids don't care. When was the last time people even looked at it? Now, again, it's third person, limited. I'm not doing your traditional noir first person, just so because I know it's more common for third person. Even though first person is something people do love to write. Let's keep going. All right, so Jack opened it. Dust poured into the air, dancing with the flicker of the storm outside. Filled to the top with tan-stained paper, aged in time and loss. All right, he crouched Crouched himself close by. And took his jacket off. All right, so how he's stealing candy from the babies since the kids don't care. That's right. Yeah. By the way, I know that's funny, but Ro is making a great point. Like, if we sat into the why and how and what he's getting out of it, if he was stealing candy from a baby, that would be a slower pace, but it would still hopefully be a fast read. And in this situation, I'm not saying either one of these are fast reads per se, but I'm showing you this is fast pace, this is slow pace. And the reason is this isn't interesting to him. Nothing. What we're doing, by the way, in this moment is we're telling the reader that Jack does not care about everything he experienced going into the attic. Thunder cracked outside the window as Jack entered. Well, that's because that's what happened. He placed his hat on the table. That's what happened. And stepped deeper into the attic. That's what happened. He moved by the clutter, reaching a large chest near the window. It's because to Jack, he had one goal, which means he probably had prior knowledge of the large chest, and he was directly going there. So Jack himself, as a character, we are telling the reader that he had prior information without telling the reader. But also in this situation, Jack just wants to get to the chest. And that's okay. Sometimes the curtains are blue. But once Jack gets there, he's reached his objective, or at least the start of it. And we have to continue setting up the scene. And in this situation, Jack is now focused. And he is now, Jack open. We could even say it creaked. It creaked. Open. Dust pouring into the air and dancing with the flicker of storm outside. All right. Or, here you go. This is how you create more rhythm. So it creaked open, dust poured into the air. And Jack swatted his hand about. All right. The dust dancing with the flicker of storm outside. So that breaks it up. That breaks up the rhythm, right? I personally like the original version because I just like things kind of flowing. But it creaked open. This might be even more stronger, and dust poured into the air. Right? And then we could just go right to Jack. Jack swatted. Did I spell that right? Yeah. Swatted his hand about. Causing it to dance with the flicker of storm outside. Okay. Swatted his hand at the cloud. Okay. Causing it to dance with the flicker of the storm outside. Okay, so now we're connecting it more to the character. We're allowing them to have some choices, okay? And he is noticing how it's moving with the storm, okay? Then, okay. I would almost make this a new movement now, but papers filled the crate, the chests to its top. Okay. The sheets tanned, stained in age and time. All right, so now I'm just cleaning them. Now my brain's just doing editing work. I don't want to do editing work. But anyway, okay. This would be a new movement. Now, the reason this is a new movement is because this is the experience of opening up the chest, and this is the experience of him sitting down next to the chest to get to work. So whenever I talk about movement and stuff like that, that's what it is. This movement is it gets him into the room and to the chest. This movement is that he opens the chest. This movement is that he's now going to sit down and actively be participating in the chest. And by the way, this could be a movement in itself as a sentence. He crouched down and took his jacket off. All right. Heavy rain patted on the window, calling him, pausing from the work ahead. I'm just writing off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Okay, so you can do this. There's nothing wrong with this but again, when you're looking at a scene, you have to look at it in movements, right? So how are we going to get him to enter the room? That's a movement. So you have to say to yourself, do I want it to be faster paced because there's not a lot of important information for the character that they would take in? If so, how do I get them in the room and get them to their objective? That is what creates fast pace for you as a writer. You have to make that choice. Then you have to figure out within a movement if this is important to the character. If it's important to the character, what is it about the character that they would notice? What is it about who they are as a character that would slow down the pace like this? Now, keep in mind, he crouched himself close by and took his jacket off is fast pace. So, fast pace, slow pace, fast pace, and then we go back to slow pace. It's creating a rhythm and a movement. It's like poetry. All right, anyway. So, in this situation, all right, we are seeing Jack do a couple things, but we're also learning about him without telling the reader who he is or the things that matter to him. But, you know, you might say, well, what does the sweating have to do? Well, what did I just say about what am I telling you about the environment, about the attic, without saying the attic is hot, without saying it's, you know, stuffy in here? He wiped his sleeve across his brow and grabbed the first pile on top. That is telling you about his character. A little heat is not going to stop him. He's here to do a job. He's just going to wipe it off and just get right to work. Okay? He's not trying to organize it. He's not trying to look at one paper at a time. He just grabs a pile. And that's the thing. When it comes to pace, you could completely slow down the pace and potentially the speed at which you read it. Okay? All right? Then it becomes a slow read. By saying, I want the audience to know these things. I want the audience to know that Jack entered the attic. He's the no-nonsense, skilled and seasoned investigator stepped into the swell of the room's musk. It's you know, stank filled his nostrils of mold, and you could do that. You could do that. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. But again, how do all those things help move the plot forward? In these beats, if you notice, I'm trying to connect it to forward momentum. Heavy rain pattered on it, calling him, pausing him from his work ahead. That's character development and work ahead, meaning he has work ahead. He's here to do something. We haven't even mentioned that he's an investigator yet in this version. Which creates what? Vague but informative. Remember, when you're writing, it's not about giving away all the answers. It's about creating questions. It's about creating atmosphere. But it's also about creating movement. And movement and engagement happens when the reader is starting to put things together. Who is Jack? Why is he entering this room? He placed his hat on and say, oh, he has a hat on. He stepped near the eye. Okay, he moved through clutter. All right, so the attic is cluttered. Okay, large near the window. All right, it cracked open and dust poured through the room. Jack swatted his hand at the cloud, causing it to dance with the flicker of the storm outside. Papers filled the chest. All right, so he's here to look through this chest for sure. That is the context. All right, he's here to look. Oh, he's looking. Our papers filled the chest to its top. You know, the sheets, tan, stained. I think that's how it would be. I don't have the spell check on, right? Stained in age and time. He crouched himself close by and took his jacket off. Heavy rain pat. All right, all these elements that are not only building the room, but we're starting to build momentum for who the characters and what they are doing, slowly revealing information a little at a time. That's what helps create that fast read. Not only are we using logical narrative movement, but also we're allowing the vague but informative element of storytelling to engage with the reader. And what does that mean? It means that the reader has to piece things together, that we are not holding their hands. Now, obviously, if you're writing young adult or middle grade or a kid's book, you got to be like, the investigator entered. You know what I'm saying? You know, he sat down by the chest to look through the paperwork for his case. Like, you know, sometimes, sometimes you got to be a little. But I'm giving information based on a little bit more advanced writing. Not that I'm saying this right here is advanced writing, because obviously it's just a zero draft of me just doing whatever I can to help you with the examples. But more importantly, at the end of the day, it's your job to decide how the character is experiencing something, but also what your goal is to set up the scene. So if we go back to the beginning, all right, I need to show that he's an investigator. I do not need to tell him. If I tell the audience he is an investigator, it slows down the pace. Might not slow down the read, though. Okay, but it does slow the pace down because it's information, it's exposition. All right, they are searching an addict for paperwork, something to do with the family element. Obviously, I would get to that. I would, as he's looking at paperwork. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, but again, I don't need to tell the reader this, but I do need to show it, which we did. We showed him moving across and getting to a chest, right? Okay, what else? We didn't get to another character enters. But the way I would do that is I would continue to build context enough so the reader knows. So, like, without going into it, you know, my beats would be, Jack reads information on paperwork that explains who owns this house. Okay, and then I would challenge. All this would be challenged. He is investigating something that will be challenged in the middle of the scene. Jack is reading paperwork that explains who owns the house. That will be challenged in the middle of the scene once the guy, the sibling comes through. I wouldn't necessarily challenge the atmosphere. However, I would use the seated hotness of the addict to influence the growing behavior of the characters. In fact, if the sibling comes in, as they are meant to, where they're going to try to confess and misdirect the information, that would put them in a high-stress area, plus temperature, heat. We are seeding the oncoming argument, the oncoming conflict, and that might definitely change or increase the behavior that the sibling has, okay? All right, so to summarize, because we're 53 minutes in, to summarize, the way I did it, fast pace, well, this is slow pace, and the reason is Jack entered the addict is the most prevalent information and context that is needed to know what's going on. A long-time private investigator is an aside, and because that's an aside or detail that doesn't move the narrative forward, it becomes a slow read, and this is slow pace. This is fast pace. It's also, coincidentally, a fast read, only because we're not trying to make sense of a lot of information. All right. This is also slow pace, but this is a fast read. Thunder cracked beyond the attic window as Jack entered, removing his hat and placing it on a small table to his left. That's all logical narrative movement. Everything is doing something. It's either moving the plot forward. Jack entered. That is important. He is in an attic. That's plot. He removed his hat and placed it on a small table to his left. So that is, more importantly, character, because we're developing his character, his behavior. Okay? But also some people might argue that character development is only when the arc moves. But character development is also learning who a character is, their behavior, their positions, how they react or don't react. Like, everything about a character seen on the page playing out is going to develop that character. Okay? But yes, it is also showing movement in their arc, even if it's a flat arc. Okay? So then the next beat is also continuing to be a fast read, but also considered slow pace. All right? Correct. back to our normal schedule. All right. So he stepped past the clutter, holding his arms to the ceiling for balance. Jack struggled over the dusty crates, reaching a large chest. Large chest near the window. Now, the reason I wrote this as the example in this part is because it tells you a lot about who Jack is as a character. He's struggling. We don't know what he physically looks like now. We don't know how old he is. But this could be seeding that reveal, that revelation, that payoff. Maybe he's a little out of shape. Maybe he's an older person. Whatever. We don't know yet. But it's nice to have this kind of behavior being represented. However, if it wasn't important, if it wasn't going to do whatever it was going to be, Jack could just enter and get to the chest. Remember, you control that element. All right. With that said, any questions? Do we have any questions? Do you want me to go deeper into anything, etc., etc.? Again, great session. Thanks. I always appreciate a reminder of movement, movement, and movement. Yes, yes, yes. You always want to keep things moving, but also the movement of passages and prose and stuff like that, and what it looks like, and how to break up. Because that's another thing. Like when I'm working with clients, a lot of times their manuscript, they'll just have like these thick prose, and you realize these prose might be 2 or 3 prose by themselves. And by the way, you affect pace by how you break up your prose too. Because if we go back to that one example, the single line right here, he crouched. This is an example of maintaining a faster pace because it's slow, a slow pace, a faster pace, slow pace, right? But it also helps with the faster read, etc., etc., etc. But seriously, if anyone has any questions, you want me to go a little deeper into anything, we got a couple minutes. I'm happy to kind of like elaborate on anything, or if something that makes sense to you, I can kind of go a little deeper in it. You just let me know. Remember, I love questions. There's no harm, no foul. Before we get into, and by the way, please answer. This is me not stopping the question section. Ask questions if you have it. But before we get into that, I just want to give a little reminder that we will be talking about the best way to balance pace. We'll go over the poll. We have 8 votes, so that's really great. May I make a formal complaint regarding the font? Yes, yes, you may. It offends me. Well, Emma, I will talk to it later. And I'll honestly, whenever the font offends you, I know it's being bad. So I'm gonna punish it later. Maybe put it in its room, tie it up, whatever. Give it its spankings or something. Because font shouldn't offend people. It should behave, and it should do what it needs to do. We want font to be like a good girl or something. We want it to behave and be nice and relaxing. But I use that because it's that font is probably the thickest and most clearest font to use on the screen. Because if we go back to it, if I change it to this is technically my favorite font to use, but it's too small. It gets a little too small. It's a little thin. No one really. It's hard to see. So it's I can't really It's not worth it. So I try to use a thick font. Sounds like T sounds like that font's in for a good time. Well, the writing is on the wall. But yeah, so we're gonna go over that. But again, if anyone has questions, feel free. Let me just do the hip hop till we don't stop, because remember, we need Times New Roman. Yeah, but Times New Roman is small. Look. Watch. It shrinks away. Look. Boop. Look how tiny that just got. I can't get any closer. Then I got to make the font like this. Just so I can see. I can't see it. If I can't see it. But I'm also blind as a bat. Even though bats aren't technically blind, but whatever. All right. Why change perfection? Yes, I'm TNR2. What does that mean? TNR meaning trap neuter. That's trap neuter return. I don't know what that means. So make it bigger, Emma. I can't just make it bigger. I gotta play with it a little bit. I gotta see. I gotta figure out what works on it. Sometimes. Whatever. You got to start. Look, you always have to start at the bottom and go to the top. You can't just make it bigger, Oh my God. So, did anyone buy Carla's? I did actually. I purchased it. Um, Times New Roman. Uh, Look how big I have to make it now. Jesus, look at that. Ugh, it's so big. Do people even like it that big, or is it like doesn't it get like uncomfortable? All right. There you go. Boom. All right. Not that we're using it anymore. All right. By the way, this channel has been growing. It's been doing great, and all the love and support has really been elevating it. But if you haven't done so already, and you really like what you've been learning and seeing on this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out for when we do our live videos every Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But more importantly, if you haven't, please bloop the beard and bloop that like button. And of course, my book is available. Apparently, people have been reading it on the Kindle Unlimited. That's right. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. So feel free, if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it on Kindle Unlimited. So an update on this book. I have officially reached chapter 10 of the second draft. I am blowing through this. There are 31 chapters. I am on chapter 10, second draft. I'm having a lot of fun with that. If you haven't already, remember Patreon exists. Patreon, you can read this book currently on Patreon. Why is that important? Well, on Patreon, it allows you a specific tier. The tier not only shows you the evolution of that book, it gives you insider knowledge, it gives you lessons, but you will also be available to see the 2 tiers that give out not only writing and craft advice separate from the book, but it also, I have downloadable sheets that also can help guide you on your writing process as well as your publishing and editing journey. But more importantly, that's all on makearightlefthehere.com. So feel free to check out makearightlefthehere.com. And ultimately, I will be adding an actual writing course to Patreon. And if you are a part of the Scribe tier, as you may be currently, thank you very much, you will be eligible to watch that series. If you're not, there will also be another tier that is dedicated just to that class series. But anyone who's on the Scribe gets a lot of benefits. It's not, I know it's a $15 tier, but it is not just the book. It is many things. You get a lot of really great stuff on it. What do we got here? I signed up for... You know, I hear that class is really amazing. When you pay her, right? And then she's like, hello, class. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you haven't purchased my son's book, by the way, he is a writer. And then a student goes, is he self-published? No. He is published to KDP. So he went through a publisher to get on there? No. KDP is the publisher. Did he set it up? Yes. Any other questions about buying my son's book? That's me. Yes, you. Yes, Flowers. The Flowers is a part of the lovely tier, and I'm so grateful that you are a part of it. So is another one, M, who participates in the show. You know, he is a part of the tier, and I really hope you're both getting something really wonderful out of it. That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight. That's me in the spotlight, losing my... All right. All right. Other than that, okay. So we have no questions, which is fine. Is it because I didn't use Times New Roman? All right. For the fun, I do use Times New Roman in this book right here. Just end this book. So I know Emma's definitely going to buy those books. I know she left me a really lovely review of my book on Goodreads, and I'm so thankful. And also Amazon, but it hasn't popped up yet because Amazon. All right, let's get into it. What's the best way to balance pace? We have scene goals. You know, what is the scene trying to do? Sentence rhythm, and then logical narrative movement. We have 8 votes. I'm assuming we have 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 5 votes on logical narrative movement, 2 votes on sentence rhythm, and 1. All right, so let's do it. Looks like logical narrative movement has officially been chosen with 63%, and that is accurate. The best way to balance pace is using logical narrative movement. Why? Because it helps lean towards a fast read. Slow read, bad. Slow read creates what I believe Afghani was saying earlier. I'm not going to scroll all the way up, but I believe Afghani was saying that he has a concern that if he slows the pace down, that it might create a slow read, and therefore the reader will lose engagement. Slow reading, whether it's fast pace or slow pace, will lose your reader. Fast reading through slow pace or fast pace will keep the reader engaged because it's maintaining forward momentum. And we do this through... I was bullied into leaving. You know, I hear some people like that a little bit, though. You know, like they, you know, but that's just me. That's just me. I didn't bully you. I didn't bully you to leave a review. Come on, you got 4,000 plus reviews on your books. All right, you got 4,000. Miss Successful Author over here getting all the love from everyone because he's such an amazing writer and a fantastic editor who has a brain that just shines like the sun and inspires aspiring authors to just feel like they are capable and possible. Just because you are all these wonderful things doesn't mean I bullied you to write a simple single review, but whatever. See, I told you I knew some of the answers to these polls. Very good, Ro. Very good, very good. But that doesn't mean a rhythm can't affect the balance of pace, because we just kind of went over it, where you can create a fast pace or a slow pace. You know what I'm saying? But more importantly, the balance comes from how you are allowing the pace itself to connect to the narrative. That's a very important lesson in this pace video. Just because you're providing information doesn't mean that information is providing movement. Okay? You want momentum. And momentum doesn't mean like, let's just push the reader through the page. That is not what a fast read means, and that's not what forward momentum means. We're not trying to, we want them to linger. We want readers to sit in moments. That's why we slow the pace. But a fast read just means that they're not overthinking or have to figure things out or stumbling over like a chunky dialogue, like my words were just right there. But also, you don't want a reader to just feel like they're reading a description or a list of statements or things are just sort of happening. And that is why logical narrative movement, that's why connecting things and allowing elements that you present, the information you present needs to satisfy the forward momentum of that narrative. And you do that through many things. One being, make sure that every line has either one of these 3 items: plot, character, or world building. You could have one or more of those 3 items in every sentence, because then something is happening every sentence. But you also want to connect sentences. If you want to describe things, do it. Just do it with purpose. Allow it to move through a character's emotional experiences and choices. Allow the description to develop the movement of the plot and expand the world, or expand the character, or expand the plot. So all these things are very important when it comes to maintaining a balance and pace. And by the way, everything I'm saying is that there is no such thing as bad slow pace or bad fast pace. It's how you use it and how you create a fast read. All right. Excellent. Yeah, you know, there's nothing to complain about because you're a lovely, amazing human being, and you know that. You already know that. You know that. Now, don't go changing the answer just because I said that. I'm not. I am absolutely standing on the position of logical narrative movement does help with balancing pace, but sentence rhythm does influence if it's fast or slow pace, but doesn't necessarily influence uh, the balance per se. Okay. Anything else? We did good today. This was a nice episode. I had fun. I was looking forward to this episode. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't just like, I can't believe we got to do this one again. I was excited because I like talking about craft. I don't know if anyone else out there, but craft is. Don't worry, Ro. Witnesses. Hey, Emma, you don't have to scream out like that. You know, some of us have bad ears. You know. Some of us can't take the screaming. You know, Jesus. Why do you gotta scream? All right. Okay. um. Sorry. Oh, what do we got here? What do we got? My brain has to go back to working. I got a lot out of this one. It's all going to start soon. That is fantastic. Anyway. Uh, by the way, flowers, just so you know, I cannot wait to see your pages. I cannot wait to support your book. I cannot wait to elevate you because I am so proud of you for writing this book, for putting the time in. And I love that you're learning, that you're growing, and then you're elevating. There's just something beautiful about that. And it goes for everybody else here. You know, you're all doing something that is very difficult, and you're trying, and you're succeeding. You know, even if the book isn't what you end up wanting it to be, remember, you got another book in you, and you could always edit that book, and you could always come back to that book and rewrite it. But the point that you're thinking about it, you're starting it, and you're doing it, that is above and beyond. Oh, listen, I have to drink water. You know, it's healthy for you. It's good for the kidney. You know, plus somebody that's really amazing was like, you know, hey, it'd be nice if you drank the water to take care of yourself. And I was like, whatever, you know, whatever. And then I was like, all right, maybe. All right, I have a question. Oh, if Manowar ran out of oil, how would they progress with their life? Well, they would not slide around as much because you know, if you're not into metal, you're not my friend. Heavy metal, no metal at all. Just started the conflict to let. Ooh. You're getting closer and closer, my friend. You're getting close. The conflict. So you're in the middle of the chapter. You know, I'd like to do a quick aside with that. When I say that a chapter's middle creates a conflict, it doesn't mean that the conflict can't start simmering or beginning in the beginning of a chapter, and it doesn't mean that conflict can't reach the end of a chapter, the resolution, and almost sort of set up what's to come. You can have conflict everywhere and anywhere, but a chapter itself would have a conflict in the middle of it. And again, it could kind of start in the setup, and it could kind of flow into the resolution. But at the same time, every chapter has its own conflict because a chapter should have a purpose. But you could have character conflict within the setup. You could have character conflict within the middle conflict. Like, you can have multiple conflicts going on, so just keep that in mind. Mi amore amico. All right, salve. Oh, saliva from the audience. Yeah, saliva. What is going on with my brain? All right. All right. What else? Is that it? Do we got it all? We got it. I feel like I want to put Manowar back on the screen, but yes. I figured that would be more likely at a Def Leppard concert back in the day. Yeah, that's true. Def Leppard, Def Leppard would definitely. I don't know. Poison. First time I ever saw Poison, I was like, these girls are gorgeous. And then I was like, oh wait, you got me, Poison. You got me. I was young. I didn't know. I didn't realize. Excellent work. And I was like, no. And then I was like, gotta listen to Iron Maiden or something, What is Def Leppard has? Def Leppard song lyrics. What do they got? Don't they have the pour some sugar on me? Right? Isn't that big hit? Or Rock of Ages? It's Rock of Ages, right? I don't know. Step inside or walk this way. You and me, baby. Hey, hey, hey. Something like, isn't that the rhythm? I forget. Love is like a bomb, baby. Come on, get it. How is this a hit? I love Def Leppard and I love 80s music, but it is not poetry. Love is like a bomb, baby. Come on, get it on. Living like a lover with a radar phone, looking like a tramp, like a video vamp. Demolition Woman can be your man? Your man? Hey, 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 razzle and dazzle and a flash, a little light, television lover, baby, go all night. Sometime, anytime, sugar me sweet, Little Miss Innocent sugar me. Oh yeah. Come on. Pause. Oh, it's not even take. Oh, you got to start. Take a bottle. Shake it up. Break the bubble. Break it up. Yeah. Pour some sugar on me. Oh, in the name of love. Pour some sugar on. All right, I'm sorry. I could get into that all day. I apologize. Those lyrics, though, Jesus. Oh, Photograph, Hysteria. They had a lot of hits. Armageddon. Foolin'. All right. Okay. I think I did break the internet. People were like, I'm out. This has nothing to do with writing. They're the ones who openly said they love animals. I bet they did. Wait, Def Leppard or Motley Crue? There are mirror lovers out there. There's an association for that. I just want you to know. Look, I'm fancy. Forget about it. All right. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or ideas? Do you need advice on your writing, especially with pace or anything else? I'm happy to do that. If not, we can start calling it a day. We can start moving towards the end of the show if you'd like. That's why the Def Leppard was deaf. You know what I liked about the drummer? I had to hand it to him because he couldn't, And what I really like is his ability to keep beat. But he was a terrible clapper. Okay. Nothing? Come on. I thought that was funny. Come on. No. Hey, can you clap us in? No, I can't. Meerkat lovers too. Oh God. They're Meerkat lovers. Dude, that dude was impressive. All right, all jokes aside, yeah, the drummer was fantastic. Even before, when he had both arms, he was an amazing drummer. When he lost his drum, like the way he recalibrated and was able to create that system for his feet and everything like that. And obviously he wasn't doing ridiculous stuff, but the fact that he was still able to play at such a level. The lyricist, though, I think needed a little bit more work, but that's just me. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. I'm overthinking it. By the way, tomorrow, write a book with me. From Concept to Conception, we are on episode 39. We are officially on the 27th chapter of the Zero Draft. That means we're at the end, which means we're going to go back. We're going to read. We're going to take some notes. I'm going to show you the next stage. We are going to be on the next stage. Yes, most bands would have gotten a new drummer. Well, they did. They did. Def Leppard got a new drummer. Well, the guy was in rehab. You know, he was no longer armed and dangerous, but he was healing. And you know, will there be a blurb writing video coming? You know, it's funny, Flowers. I just wrote the blurb video today, and Emma can what's the word? Not contest, corroborate that truth. I sent her something from it. Yes, I have officially written the blurb video. If you'd like to know, let me see. Uno momento, por favor. That video will be out. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That video will be published on February 18th. February 18th. But it is written. It is written. I have to record it, though. I still have to record it. But I did write it today, and I enjoyed writing it. I concur. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, too. I was like, ooh, let me talk about this a little bit. I was staring into my crystal ball, and I just wanted to check I was picking up the vibes. Absolutely. It is. It is. I have to film it, though. I have to film it. But like all videos, when I pre-record, I do a script so I can read and remember everything. I added the best bit. To be honest, to BH, to the b, to b, it was the best. Emma did give me a little nudge of something, and she was like, put that in there. And then I was like, it's now good. Rose says, it would be in bad taste for Def Leppard to ever release an album titled A Farewell. Be like, okay, I'm out. Well, it would be bad taste if Def Leppard played another show. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the reasons I was like, I can't be in music anymore, because I don't want to be like 80 years old, you know, up there thinking I'm, you know, like Metallica. I love Metallica as the band before the debacle, but can you picture Metallica up there and Lars just trying to play the drums at 80? You know, like, I can't. It would be terrible. I bet Emma was baking focaccia. Jesus. Holy, my brain. Why does my brain do that? I also can't really see the screen. Let's be honest. Focaccia. There we go. Focaccia. At the same time as filming and scripting the part. You know, Emma can do many things. I'm not up to that level yet. I'm just a dude. Pretty seeing it, yeah. You're already seeing it. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. They yeah. That's fair. Lars is 80. He is a tennis player. He was a champion tennis player in Poland or something. Anyway. All right. I've had a lot of fun. I could entertain all day, but you know, at some point I'm gonna have to eat lunch. You know, that's the rule. Thomas needs to eat lunch. But if you really did like this video and you think somebody could learn from it or would benefit from it, please share the video if you're up and willing to do so. That would be amazing. Other than that, I think it's time to call it a day. But at the same time, thank you for all the reviews for the book. I've been getting some more reviews. Thank you for the support and everything else. My goal really is to make this channel grow. I really would like to have this channel continue to do what it's doing, because I love coming here and talking craft. I love doing the pre-records. I love doing the lives. Next year, I'm going to try to do more videos per se, more pre-records, but I'm going to add some extra like asides. I'm going to be a little bit more conscious to what you guys want as the audience. So every Saturday and Sunday, if you have video ideas you want me to do, please just send them my way. You could either email it through the Make a Right Left Here website, or you could pop it on a video, or you could pop it in the comments. But more importantly, the reason I say that is because I'm leaving some slots open during the week where I can just record a video that's outside my schedule, and then I could sort of get that video out for you quicker, sooner than later, and you don't have to wait for the next season of videos. Because again, I write and record all my videos for Wednesdays and Fridays. I do it in basically a 2.5-3 month span. So, but I am going to this year, 2026, leave room to do some extra videos. So just keep that in mind. You ever get Man-O-War factoids in the video? I have plenty of factoids. Buy Thomas's stuff. Yeah, if you want to buy my stuff, it's right here. It's right here. Also, buy Carla's son's stuff. She is. They are trying to. They're trying to do something. Anyway, with that, I have to. I am hungry. I am hungry. So let's call that down. To everyone out there, hey, again, thank you so much. Much love for always being here, making this fun, and being part of the entertainment. Not only for myself, but I love that we're all laughing, smiling, and having a good time. So, with that, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye!